If I was forced to choose just one thing that separates the best musicians from the rest, I think it would be that they have a really clear idea of who they are as musicians and where they're going with their music. And of course, there is a lot more than just one thing that goes into it. There's lots of things that make a difference. But I think it's a great exercise to try and see if you can identify the few things that have the biggest impact on your playing, because that's going to give you the easy ways to get big wins moving forward with your music. Hey friends, Morley-Fletcher here, and welcome back to the channel. And I'm going to explain just why this clarity of purpose about your music is so important in just a second. But first, I wanted to just get clear for myself that it wasn't just me who thinks this, that there are other people who have similar opinions. And I remembered back to a masterclass that I was lucky enough to sit in on several years ago now. And it was with great new jazz guitarist Mike Marino. And he was talking about what made the difference to musicians that he'd known. What had been the thing that he'd noticed in musicians that had gone on to become big names in the jazz world. Because he was at music college growing up with a whole load of fantastic musicians. And some of them really went on to make it big, and he plays with them now, and big names in the jazz world. And so others of them who looked like equally good musicians at the time just didn't get that progress. And when he was looking back at what made the difference, again, he came to this idea. It's the ones who've really made it big are the ones who had a very clear and very specific idea of where they're going. And what's interesting is that it was this rather than obvious talent. It wasn't people who could do things easily. It wasn't that people who worked harder, who seemed to practice more that made the difference. It was this real clarity of purpose, concept of who they are, where they're going. And so I just want to dig into a little bit why this should be, because it's all very well for me to tell you this, but when you understand why, it makes it much easier for you to go, oh yeah, okay, I do need to work on that, and it is going to help me anyway. So why is this clarity about where you're going so important? Well, the first thing is, if you know exactly where you're going, you can take the straightest and most direct path to get there. You're not just stuck in having to practice everything that seems like you could work on, or even in the case where you're just constantly getting distracted by new things. If you know this is who I want to be as a musician, where I want to get to, and by implication, here are the things that I'm not so interested in, you can pick just the ones that are going to get you where you want to go. You can ignore stuff that is, great for some musicians who want to do different things, but not so relevant to you. And you can go even a little bit further than that, rather than just saying, what are all the things that are relevant to where I want to get to, and let's ignore the ones that aren't. You can look at the ones that are relevant to you and go, okay, well, which are the ones that make the biggest difference? I know where I want to get to. If I could only do one thing to take me one step closer onto that, what would it be? So not only do you pick the right things and you leave out the irrelevant ones, you can look at that group of right things and say, well, which of those is going to make the biggest step for me right now, rather than something else that's just going to make a small difference. And if you're finding this interesting, if you're liking this, this is exactly what the channel is all about, because I'm always trying to highlight the things that make a big difference to musicians that don't often get talked about. And I think this clarity of purpose, this knowing where you're trying to get to, is one of those. But there's more than just this direct route. So when you are very clear on where you're going, it actually helps you to learn faster. Very interesting stuff coming out of relatively recent neuroscience research that shows brain plasticity, neuroplasticity, which is actual changing of your brain's pathways, which is frankly what we need when we're learning. That's what makes a difference to you becoming a better musician. It's actual changes in your brain. And you can do this at any age, but they come really easily when you're a small child, but it's a bit harder once you reach adulthood. But one of the things that makes a difference, and the one area where you can see adults learning as fast as children, is when it is really important for them to, something fundamental about their life. And this is often combined with things such as, finding food in order to live, that sort of thing. But when you have a really clear idea of where you're going, this becomes your purpose. You have a very specific purpose, not just to do music, but to get to this particular point. And that is actually going to give you a very clear sense of why you're doing something, a very specific reason for doing it. And that in turn is going to put you in that state where your brain actually just learns quicker. So when you've got that real clear vision of where you want to get to, that gives you a strong why for why you are practicing what you're working on. And that in turn actually physically helps your brain learn faster. And you never know, I might make a video on the neuroscience of this at some point. But if you're finding this useful, those tips that I'm sharing with you, then please just take a minute to click the like button below this video. I would really appreciate it, and it helps this video spread to more people who will hopefully also find it useful. So thanks. So next reason why knowing exactly where you want to get to is important is that it keeps you motivated. When you have a very clear idea of where you're going, that helps you keep doing the work because you're very clear on how it is moving you forward and why it is important to you to get where you're going. And not only just keep doing the work, which of course you need to do, regular practice, but actually enjoy doing it. When you're clear why you're doing it, again, it's just more enjoyable. And frankly, who doesn't want that as we work on our music? And finally, the other reason why it's really helpful to have a clear idea of where you're going is because this is going to help you get your own individual voice, your own individual sound as a musician. Because otherwise, you're just at the whim of either trying to learn everything or what someone else has laid down for you, and this is the path that you have to take. When you're very clear, this is where I want to go, you are pulling in all stuff that is specific to you. It's your idea. And at the same point, as mentioned earlier, you're deliberately leaving out some things. And so that combination of I'm doing a lot on this and I'm not doing that is going to contribute to you having your own individual voice on the instrument, whatever you're doing. And I think that's a lovely thing to be able to do. So if you're not 100% clear on exactly what you're looking to do as a musician, where you're looking to get to, what's important to you, then it's definitely worth putting some time into thinking about this. Because it's not one of those things where it's just 5 seconds, you're done, you know exactly what you need to get to. It's going to take some reflection. It's going to take a bit of thought about it. But it is worth doing that. And if you'd like some help getting clear on this, then my True Musical Potential Roadmap course will show you how to actually map out your own personal roadmap of where you want to get to and the best way to get there. So you might want to check that out, and I'll put a link in the description below. But once you know where you're going, then we need to go a bit further. And effective practice is, of course, the engine that moves you along that road. So check out my video on how to practice effectively next. And if you'd like the special music practice and performance tips that I only share with subscribers, then head on over to playinthezone.com and sign up for the emails. They're free. I've been Morley-Fletcher. Thanks so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.